Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. Would you take on the world government to save your brother? Today, we're covering the Marineford arc and the Summit War from the One Piece anime and manga. We're gonna cry, record it, and let you guys hear us weep. I am the one and only Joshua Noel. This is both my favorite and least favorite arc in all of One Piece. And I'm here with the one and only beautiful Christian Ashley. How's it going?
Feeling pretty beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm also here. We have a few on here because basically all the One Piece folk are like, we have to talk about this. I'm also here with we'll say the majestic Elizabeth Clyde, also known as Liz. How's it going?
Hello. Pretty all right.
And of course, I am here with the one who invented One Piece because he is the one who spoke and his speech created Oda. TJ, Tiberius on Blackwell. How's it going?
Great.
Yeah, good to see you. All right, guys. This is going to be a big one. It's going to be a hard one, but we're only able to make ourselves cry and talk about it because we have people supporting our show. There's a few different ways they do this. One is if you're on a laptop, you can consider rating and reviewing our show on Podchaser or Good Pods. It's going to help our show gain recognition, make it easier to find in search engines like Google. If you're on your phone, consider rating, reviewing, or commenting on our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Specifically, one of those two apps, it helps prioritize our show in their algorithms, and that's where most people listen to podcasts. So, hey, that's a free way you can support the show that takes like 10 seconds, and we really appreciate it. For people who have money, not myself, we do appreciate our sponsors as well. We want to do a special shout out to them. So thank you to everyone who sponsors our show on Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. Today, we're going to do a special shout out to Annette Noel, my favorite aunt. I had to shout her out on my favorite arc of One Piece review. And remember, if you guys want your own shout out, you too can support our show for $3 a month on one of those three platforms: Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. Before we get to anything else, Christian Ashley, let us know, with your divine wisdom, what have you been choosing to geek out on recently?
I recently just went back up to Chicago to visit my brother and niece. My dad came along, and I made a comment, "Hey, the newest Invincible episode's out. Let's go watch it." And it's like, "Oh, we haven't watched it." I was like, "Oh, why? I disown you as family." So we watched through the entire first season, and I had a blast.
Fantastic. For myself, luckily, my dissertation for my master's includes Kingdom Hearts, so I'm playing through all the Kingdom Hearts games like I always do. But this time, now that I have a Steam Deck, I'm going through the original versions of all the games instead of all of the remastered HD 1.5, 2.8 stuff. The originals are just so much better, and it's making me so happy. TJ, what you been geeking out on lately?
Here lately, I don't know. I went on a little vacation. So I was mostly geeking out on driving.
Yeah. Well, since this isn't on YouTube, do you want to show everyone your tattoo?
No, I have to stand up.
Oh, yeah.
And like stand in my chair.
That sounds fun. All right. Well, I'm also here with the tatted Liz. What tattoos have you been geeking out on lately?
So I've been thinking of expanding my sleeve to my back. And so I was thinking of like either doing some more like obviously cherry blossoms, but
yeah,
maybe that could be a poll. We can let them vote on the next anime cherry blossom tattoo I get, because I just want another one.
If that counts, I've been planning a thigh sleeve.
That does count. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to do like American traditional ocean.
Well, to stick to my own brand, I'm going to Japan and I'm going to get one of the push and poke tattoos. And one of the ones I could choose from, of course, have the Oblivion and Oathkeeper keyblades. And it has the Japanese words to Simple and Clean, where it has you are the light in the darkness. Guys, if you want to see all of our One Piece episodes, the link down below, there's a whole series of stuff that we've done. We've been going through all of the different arcs. Speaking of which, before we get into Marineford, I would say this is like the quintessential arc of One Piece. TJ, could you fill our listeners in on what they need to know about the story so far, just to catch us up? Because you're the only one who can say anything quickly.
No, I don't think it's possible at this point in the story.
Could you try anyway?
No,
Luffy
so
has
much.
a brother.
All right,
There's
I
so
will
much.
try.
So-
Standing on that
so-
face.
I got it. So, like, but you know what's like? Okay, no, yeah, I give up.
Okay, so this show is about a group of pirates, because pirates cool. World government not so cool in this world. The lead pirate is named Luffy. He wants to become the king of the pirates because that's a thing in this universe. Don't worry about it. For the most part, we've had a lot of silly, fun adventures. There's a lot of heartfelt moments as well because, Luffy wants everyone to have freedom. He wants to do what he wants to do. So the government controlling people and belittling and marginalizing people is bad. So that upsets him. So he fights for people occasionally. Recently, on the last episode, they ran into problems. Really saw the first time Luffy and them weren't able to do something. They were taking a hiatus so they can build their skill level up. Other shenanigans happen. Now, Luffy's brother Ace who's also a pirate, is about to be executed at the on stage for everyone to see in Marineford by the world government. So people Luffy has run into and made friends with because, he's fighting against the government and bad people, are there to try and save Ace. The Whitebeard pirates show up. I don't know if they show up before this or during this. They're pirates as well. That's all you need to know. And a lot of other characters just randomly show up for one side or the other because for some reason, Ace's execution, him dying, is a big deal to literally everyone in the entire world. So that's where we're at. Christian, could you summarize Marineford and the Summit War that happens in One Piece?
Okay. So we've got a lot to cover here. I'm going to skip a lot because if I did, we would be here for an hour. So for the sake of brevity, it's Ace's execution day. The Luffy and the gang that have gotten out of Impel Down are heading his way to try and save him. We meet Admiral Sengoku, who's going to tell Garp, who has acted as father figure to both Luffy and Ace. And Sengoku tells him, I'm going to tell everyone everything about what happened here, about who Ace actually is. And Garp's like, yeah, whatever, man. He's going to die either way. And he's still like conflicted by he wants to save his son, his adopted son at the same time. He's got to follow the law. Huge part of his character. And we learn that Ace is the son of Goldie Roger, who had a lady friend known as Porcus the Rouge. Yeah, who in a medical feat no one has quite done before or since, kept Ace in her womb for 20 months, which is 11 more than what you typically want to do, in an effort to protect her son, to kind of prevent a slaughter of the innocents kind of situation here. The world government / Herod going after Ace or Jesus in this scenario, and was able to actually give birth to him and then put him under the care of Garp after all this was said and done. And we then go to the present and find that Whitebeard is on his way to Marineford. He's going to try and get Ace, who has become a surrogate son to him as well after he joined his crew. Their gang is still heading that way. And, Ivankov kind of has this one moment like, is Dragon going to be coming here? Because it's a huge moment. It'd be like a huge propaganda win if they went that way. There's also like speculation, will Shanks show up? It's been 500 some chapters. Will he actually appear and do something in this manga? Well, it turns out, wait till the end. And in the process of all this, Whitebeard makes his big entrance, uses his devil fruit, which just creates earthquakes, disrupts everyone there, and the battle pretty much begins. We have Admiral Kiji coming in. We have Marco joining in on the fight as well from the Whitebeard side of things. And we have the Warlords of the Sea there who are also there for the execution. And there's some pick fights with the people invading. Some people join their side. Some people just kind of do their own thing. Gecko Moria ends up fighting with who is it? Is it Ace? No, he hasn't been freed yet. I can't remember, but in the midst of all this, he sends his goons against everyone. Doflamingo's doing his own thing, and this is at the point where Luffy and the gang actually like cause chaos. They enter the scene and just start beating up on some people who really deserve it, all for the sake of saving Ace. And just it's a giant melee of we're on this side right now. We're on this side the second time this happens. Who knows where allegiances lie? Luffy meets up with Whitebeard. They have a nice little talk in the midst of all this. Like, Bo is real happy that Luffy's made it. There's revelations about, Luffy's dad is Dragon. This is revealed to the entire world, and Luffy doesn't care. He had, in fact, told his group earlier, yeah, he's my dad. Who cares? Goes Gear 3. Jinbei is the one who attacks Moria. That's right.
Gotta love Jinbei.
Such a great guy. Maybe a worthy person of adding to the team. Who knows? And
Not I.
Yeah. Luffy faces off against Mihawk for a little bit. He's kind of associated with world government, kind of not, but kind of doing his own thing, just looking for a strongest person to fight. This is when Sengoku releases all the pacifista against everyone to try and quell this attack, quell this rebellion. And Whitebeard gets stabbed a couple of times, but never in the back. And that's super important for what happened later. Crocodile, of course, joins in with the brawl. Like, whose side is he on? Crocodiles. And in the midst of all this, they finally get over to where the admirals are standing. Luffy, alone for a moment, is there. Just so we can get Ace out. And eventually, through the process, Ace is freed from this after kind of Whitebeard and then Akainu fight one another. Buggy, of course, is doing his own thing, causing chaos. And he's got a bunch of groupies who like love him now, who think that everything he did was planned. And Buggy, of course, is not going to be the person to tell him that he didn't plan any of this. But the moment that kind of breaks the moment for where things are going to go better for the good guys' side, Luffy unleashes Supreme King Haki unwittingly, and like just brings it to the point where he's able to get to Ace after Garp kind of takes a dive and lets Luffy hit him, but doesn't actually fight at full strength because, he's once again like following the law or saving my kid. He's going to let his kid punch him in the face, and Ace is free. And the two brothers are fighting side by side as Whitebeard is continuing his assault until Akainu gets in and talks smack about Whitebeard. And as they're about to get away, Ace turns around and takes a blow for Luffy. And apparently someone dies in One Piece for the first time ever. Death never existed in the world until this moment in time.
I never knew about that thing. Like, it had never occurred to me that people weren't dying until you guys started recording these episodes. Like, I just never knew that Ace was the first person to die in One Piece.
Yeah, like 2 people have died in the series so far. 3.
Yeah, it just
as of chapter whatever 1,000.
Yeah, this is insane. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you weren't done.
Yeah. So like with his final words, he's like, Ace mentions Luffy and Sabo, and who is Sabo? We'll find out in a little bit. Not this episode, but next time around. And his fever card just ends up in flames, and Ace is gone for good. And then Blackbeard shows up on the scene, attacks. Whitebeard is still fighting against the Marines. It's pretty much one-man army just murking some fools, but even he can only go so long. And in the process, he himself does end up dying. And I'm trying to get to... I think right before then... No, it's a little after then. That's when Shanks shows up on the scene and says, hey, by the way, this battle's over because I'm Shanks. So that's pretty much
he shows up and he's like, no more. Everybody shut up.
Blackbeard has stolen, which is wholly unprecedented, the devil fruit of Whitebeard, because you're only supposed to have one at a time. How does that work? We'll still haven't figured out. We still got hundreds of chapters to go. And this is when one of his things before he does go, Whitebeard does say, the One Piece is real, which then starts the new great age of pirates. And that is how we end this arc after skipping a lot.
Yeah. Hey guys, again, thank you so much for listening to our show and being part of the Systematic Geekology team. If you want to support our team, you can do so by going to Captivate. And I know most people don't listen on Captivate, but it's in the description wherever you're listening. You can go to our website. At the very bottom, you have the options to either subscribe, and you'll get some extra content and fun stuff, like our bonus questions, all those kind of things that hopefully you all come to love as much as I love making them with our fellow geekologists on the team. We also are hoping to do some future D&D campaigns, stuff like that, and all that's available for our sponsors. But if you don't have those extra funds and you're not really into the subscription thing, you can also leave a one-time tip, just one-time thing to help out our show as we kind of stay in the game with podcasting, keep relevant with all the technology and all that stuff. And it costs a lot to run a show, and we appreciate you for your help. Again, thank you so much for listening. We value your time, and it means a lot to us that you give us your time by listening to our show and supporting us in that way. If you feel led to support financially as well, we appreciate that. Let's get back to the show. If you want an even shorter version, my attempt, Luffy, for those who remember, the group that's with him is not his own pirate crew. They're still making themselves better. He's with the prisoners from Impel Down. Luffy and people run to save Ace. Other people show up to save Ace. Other people show up to keep them from saving Ace. Luffy's will is so strong, people just fall down. He saves Ace. But then JK, Lava Man, punches through, kills them both. It's sad. Fight still happens. Shank shows up. Not kills them both. Kills Ace. Luffy
Kills them both.
It seems like Luffy's dead for a second, though. You're like, what the hell? Anyway.
What a twist.
Kills Ace. Luffy's alive, maybe. Yeah, he's alive. It doesn't seem like it. Shank's guy with red hair who had the original straw hat from like way back, y'all probably don't remember. He shows up, says, "Hey guys, this fight's over." And everybody's like, "Yeah, you're probably right." And then it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, Christian mentioned it, but someone did do like the math. Whitebeard had 267 sword wounds, 152 gunshot wounds, 46 cannonball wounds, got half of his head blasted off, and got hit with an actual laser beam.
Yeah.
Before he died.
Still standing, never once hit in the back.
Yeah. He, for those who don't like, who want the context of who Whitebeard is, he's like giant guy, the most honorable pirate, maybe. A lot of people are just like pirates with him because like they like him. Like it really is just like he's cool. And then he shows up and it's just done. Yeah, like Christian mentioned, he's like literally a one-man army fighting all these people. And yeah, it takes a lot to bring Whitebeard down.
He's also not a one-man army because he does have an entire army. Yeah. So it's basically like fighting two armies.
Yeah. The Civil War was actually a war. And it wasn't like hey, this is a couple episodes of fighting. Nah, y'all. This was like a really long arc of just fighting. Oh, man. So I mentioned, like, I think I've said elsewhere, there's been like 3 to 4 times I have cried because of a television show. This has been the worst. And part of what got me really was like, it felt like Luffy saved Ace. And for this time up to now, like for the most part, if Luffy wants something bad enough, willpower gets him there. And I really thought, I was like, oh, cool, he saved Ace. And then, nope. And it like, I don't know. It felt like my heart was pulled out. My first reaction to this was like rewatching to see if I missed something, if there's a way he's still alive. And just like, no. And like, I don't know. There's only been like a few times when I binged One Piece that I had to stop. This was one of them. I was like, I was a mess after seeing this. I was like, I gotta sit on this. I gotta recuperate. This is rough. So I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Liz hasn't talked much, so let's start with her. What was your first reaction? You finished this arc and you didn't die apparently. My heart almost gave out, but what was yours?
Gosh, because how many years ago did this come out? I feel like Christian randomly.
I have no idea.
I was either in high school or my first year at college. So this would have been somewhere from 2008 to 2010.
I saw it while I was in college.
Okay, so I was probably, because I was up to date, I remember, because you had to like wait. I was around either 16 to 18 seeing this, and I was not okay.
2010 to 2011, yeah.
Yeah, so if it's 2010, I was definitely 18. And I was not okay.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the few times I've cried over. Like now, as I grew older, I cry with anything now, stupid hormones. But like as a child, a little 18-year-old baby, I did not cry. at all. And I wept and I was not okay. And then it kind of made it like less fun. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we're not supposed to lose. We're the good guys, you know?
Yeah.
But I respect that, you know, I respect with what Oda did. And even though it's like one of those things, like I was just talking about Titanic the other day, I've rewatched One Piece since then, at least like one other time through this. And even though you know what's going to happen, it's the same feeling I get with The Lion King or Titanic. I'm like you want Mufasa to live. Like you want Scar to not let go. You want Jack to get on the door. You just want Ace to survive. So just kind of having that like feeling, I'm sure if we all rewatched the episode today, we would still have the same like hopeful feeling just for it to get crushed again.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know, for me, a lot of modern movies, and I include Titanic because I don't get it. It's not.
Jack could have fit on that dang door.
Yeah, but the whole movie is just so boring. It's just hard to care. But I digress. I don't know. So many times with movies specifically, like just in general movies, I guess because it's like everything's crammed in so much. When characters die, like sometimes I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I'm never like, I don't know. This felt personal. Like it felt like someone I knew died. I was like, what is this? Like I didn't know TV could make me feel this way. Yeah, I don't know. TJ, what about you? What was your first reaction after this?
The thing is, like Ace isn't even a straw. Like Ace does not have a lot of screen time up to this point.
Yeah, true.
Like, imagine if a Straw Hat died.
Don't make me think about that because it's probably going to happen.
It kind of makes me think, too, because Ace, even though he wasn't a Straw Hat, like, Luffy was completely and utterly devastated. And at least with me, like, I've lost a sibling. And yes, that sucks and it hurts. But what hurts a lot, too, is when someone really close to you hurts and there's nothing you can do. So I feel like we kind of like had that sympathetic hurt, you know what I mean? Like when we're hurting, we can process our emotions and we can like, you know, we have a sense of control. But then when someone super close to you hurts, that feeling of helplessness, there's very few things that's worse than that.
Yeah. Well, my biggest mistake going into One Piece, a friend of all but Christians, actually, I think. Actually, Christian played a game with him once. It counts as a friend. So Israel Eiler, shout out to you. We love you.
I know him.
He's what made me start this show.
I made him start it.
I know we've been through this, but he made me start because he was like, the main character is you. And like, I started watching it and I'm like, oh yeah, I relate to this guy. So I've gone through this whole show. Like everything Luffy feels, I feel for the most part. Cause like, I just went into it with that mindset. So then this happening, I think is probably why it felt so personal. I was like, I kind of hate this. And then like, I'm immediately like, what if my brother died? And I had to like watch it and he died to save me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to think about this.
Yeah. Moving on.
Christian. Like, oh, I thought you literally meant moving on.
No, I'm just saying like moving on from like that. Like if you think about how he processed, because I mean, I guess his therapist is the sea, but he has no one to like give grief counseling.
Yeah. Christian, what junk food did you eat when you were weeping after this? I don't know. How did you process this?
Well, as noted on the show before, this was my actual full introduction into One Piece. I knew it existed. I knew it had played on Cartoon Network with the terrible 4Kids dub, but I'd never actually watched it. And then out of the blue, I decided one day I was just going to check out a chapter. And it was the chapter where Whitebeard died.
What a chapter. What a chapter.
And I'm going through a list of this man took this many slashes. He took this many gunshots or cannonballs and not a single thing on his back. I'm like, what a Chad. Well, who's this guy? Let me learn what's going on here. So I went back and read everything. And now in context of picking up to where the manga actually was at that time, I was like, oh, this matters a lot. This is raising the stakes in a good way. This is not a senseless death. This is something where it impacts everyone in the story. If Ace does not die here, if Ace lives, I would rather that happen. But as from a storytelling perspective, this changes Luffy forever. He cannot always be as goofy as he used to be. He cannot always react to things in the same way. He needs to plan a little better. He needs to be a little stronger. He wasn't strong enough to do this, and that's going to be a huge part of his character progression as we go on here. He becomes more of a character in these past couple arcs as opposed to the very beginning. Not to say he was never a character, but like he grows far more because of what happens here. The entire world has changed because of what happens here, and it's done so effectively well. Like without the buildup of what came before, this arc does not have the impact that it does.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
And I'm pretty sure that I blocked this out. Like, I'm fairly certain I suppressed the memory of seeing this for the first time.
Were you just traumatized by this? Is that what we're finding out?
Maybe, because I definitely watched the 4Kids dub of this growing up, and then just didn't for a little while, and one day picked One Piece back up and just started from scratch. So, you know, I would like remember bits and pieces as I was catching up. And I'm pretty sure that I read Marineford in your car when we were going somewhere. Yeah.
That's awful. What a terrible drive read.
Yeah.
Nowhere. Doesn't matter where you go after that. It's not going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I just put the phone down.
Yeah, that's wise.
Yeah. I don't remember where we were going or.
Yeah. How could you? I don't think any real life experience really measures up to this part of the story.
And it's like a crazy bad timing because it only took me a few weeks to catch up.
Yeah. So something that was brought up in this that I hadn't thought of that I'm just thinking of on the spot, and I'm going to make everybody else contemplate with me and see what they think. Whitebeard and Ace both die in this arc. And it's interesting, like Ace is the one that we feel that's like devastating, but Whitebeard is really like the more important character. Like he is like pivotal to the world. And what I'm thinking of is like I had family members die and how much that hurt me. And yet when Tim Keller died, so he's like a hero of the Christian faith, in my opinion, it affected me differently. Like I wasn't grieved, but you feel like there's something missing in the world. And I feel like that's kind of what happens here. There's something missing in the world with Whitebeard gone, but you more feel Luffy's death. Is that, is that, I don't know. Is that analysis, that simile, does that work?
Yeah, Whitebeard.
I think it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'll always go back to the day I learned that Steve Irwin died. That man was my hero growing up. I had never met Steve. You know, I shook his hand. I had only seen him on The Crocodile Hunter. It's like, oh my gosh, this man cares about animals. He cares about his job. He cares about, you know, making the world a better place. And I was on a plane going to New York with my dad, and on the TV in front of me, and the scene in front of me, I saw on CNN, I was flipping through channels, he was dead. And it was just like, I had lost a piece of myself. And it wasn't like, yeah, he wasn't a family member. I had no personal relationship with him, but it was still a loss in the same way. So I get that. Like in framework of the world, there's a huge power vacuum that is now there in the world because Whitebeard isn't in charge of the Whitebeard pirates. You have to, okay, who's going to take the spoils, as it were? And Blackbeard literally takes the spoils of his devil fruit, which is supposed to appear somewhere else in the world later on, and is now proven that you can, in some way, have more than one. Like him not being there affects everyone.
Yeah.
I've felt this way twice, I think. 3 times. And it's Kentaro Miura's death, Toriyama's death. And the 3rd time, it wasn't as bad, but when the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Died, that messed me up for a day.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, this is fun. We're just going to be contemplating death. Hopefully this releases and it's still the season of Lent, and this makes perfect sense. It was funny. I remember when Steve Irwin died, it was the first time I ever actually had to think about, like, what is death? Like, I was young enough that I would, like, that was the first person that I, like, was aware enough of who they were that death meant anything, if that makes sense. I mean, for other people, it was like, okay, so that just means someone was here and then they weren't here. And like, it wasn't till Steve Irwin died that I was like, oh, he's not here. And then I remember feeling something really similar to all this when someone who's been on our other podcast a few times, the Whole Church podcast, we had a guest, Michael Heiser, who I love his biblical work, even if I disagree with some of it. When he passed away, it's like, oh, we're not going to have him as a guest on our show this year, I guess, obviously. And that, I don't know, that hit me in a different way. Probably very similar to like when Tim Keller passed or like Whitebeard in the story. And I don't know, it's just so weird when like heroes are the ones that go, because you're like, they're supposed to go forever. What do you what do you mean? Michael Heiser can't be gone. He's got another book I have to read next year. It's like, no, guess not. It's just rough. I don't know where to go from here. Anybody else have something to say, or like, I don't know. It feels irrelevant to just let's go to the next thing.
I mean, I can't really relate, and this is going to sound like I'm being a Debbie Downer, but because I've had so many personal people in my personal life die, siblings, best friends, like all that stuff. When people I don't know die, like granted, like if I'm invested in the show, I get sad in the moment, but I don't carry it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just different feelings because I know So another shout out. Someone I used to do ministry with, JC Prescott, was about my age, and he had a heart attack and he died. And that for me, that was hard. Obviously, grandparents and other family members pass away, and it is harder, I will say, when it's someone you know. I think it's a lot harder, but I feel like it's a different kind of loss because it's not as sad or hurt. It doesn't hurt as much for me when like Michael Heiser or Tim Keller passed away, but the world does feel emptier afterwards. I don't know.
Hello there, listener. This is Evan Garcia, and I just wanted to jump in here to remind you and to let you know of our Facebook groups and our Discord server. These are great communities where you can post and share memes and talk with the hosts, and we have votes and some polls for future episode topics and fun interactions with our hosts. So just wanted to remind you that we are focused on community with you listeners, and we love each and every one of you guys listening. Thank you guys.
And that's just, I don't know, a challenge of living. And that's where, I go to, apparently, I've been learning a lot. Some of my own philosophies, I now have like words for where they come from, thanks to our friend Aaron Simmons. It's a Levinas thing of like, I don't think of myself or anybody as like single things. Like I don't just exist. I exist because of my relationships. And this is going to go to a C.S. Lewis thing, and it's going to be about death, so it's fine. In The Four Loves, which I have to bring up a lot, C.S. Lewis, when he talks about friendship, he talks about how like if someone dies, you don't just lose that person. You lose that part of someone else that they brought out. So for example, Christian, I'm sorry to do this. If Christian were to die, I would be super sad about Christian being gone. But also, there's a part of TJ that does not come out unless Christian is around. And now, even though TJ's alive, I will never have that part of TJ around anymore. And I think what happens when these big heroes die, there's something that, like, when I'm reading a Tim Keller book, like that it changes part of me and changes part of the other people in our religious communities when he writes something, that's not going to happen anymore. So even though I don't personally feel that death, a lot of my people around me who are impacted by his words and what he does, I'm suddenly losing parts of them, and I don't have words to that because it's like I didn't know Tim Keller, but it still is personally affecting me in that way. I think that's kind of part of what's happening here. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on from death. 0 to 10. How would you rate Ace's death, TJ?
10. Perfect. No notes. Kill him twice.
You gave TJ the opportunity, he'd do it himself.
I don't know why I didn't expect that at all. So, Liz, are you as positive of Ace's death as DJ?
I mean, we wouldn't have had the character development without this, so I'll give it a 9.8.
Okay.
And as I said before we started recording, I wish I would have thought to eat donuts during this episode.
I hate you for that. Christian.
She's a monster, but she's our monster.
Are you killing Ace twice as well, or?
I mean, why not go for 3? The perfect number. No, 7, the perfect number. 10 out of 10. This is a completely earned arc. If we do not, like I said earlier, if we don't have everything that is established beforehand, this has no impact whatsoever. But because we know of Luffy's weird relationship with his family, how Garp is feeling about the situation, how Whitebeard and Ace feel about the situation, and then the other 50 plus characters that are in this arc, how they feel, it matters what happens here. And One Piece still hasn't recovered in the same way, even with time skips, because of what happens here. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, I want to say, like, by this point, Ace's death is chapter 574. 574 chapters into most other series, you have finished. You're done with the series by that point. Mm-hmm. Every emotion that series put you through is done. Mm-hmm. Like Naruto in its entirety is like 700 chapters.
Yeah. I'm gonna do my rating weird because you guys know I compare things. That's how I do ratings. I'm comparing it to other things. Here are the list of deaths that I think are the absolute best that this goes with. And I'm talking about like even books. Books don't usually make me feel this. This, I put it with Gwen Stacy dying in Spider-Man. I put it with, actually, there's probably 2 times in Doctor Who that there's deaths that make me think of this. Galateo, the book by Miller, I can't remember her first name for some reason. That goes up there. There's just not a lot of deaths that are like story-wise make this big of an impact, emotionally make this big of an impact for me, or actually feel like they mattered. I don't know. Like, so many times in a story, someone dies and it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter. The main point was something else. The main point isn't the death. You can watch this arc if you have the context of what's happening, and it has a point to itself. Like, it's not just to do something else. Like, yes, it does have big impacts and it does more for the story, but this story stands on its own as well. And the death matters. So I'm going to give it a 0 out of 10.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm averaging my 2 ratings. I hated watching it so much that I'm giving it a -10, but it moved me so much and I realized what a great story it was. I'm giving it a +10. So I'm going to average the 2. No, I'm just kidding. It's a 10 out of 10. I just also want to just express how much I hate that this put me through this for some reason.
I want to say,
Well, that's what a good story does.
I just wanted a silly little pirate show.
wrong.
Go ahead, DJ.
I did look it up just to see, like, there are series that are longer than One Piece that are still ongoing. I think there's maybe 2 on the list that people
Is
have
one
even
Detective
heard
Conan?
of. Is Detective Conan still ongoing? It's not.
It's not? Okay.
Or it doesn't have more
Oh,
chapters
wow.
than One Piece. It might still be going.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the only ones that I recognize that are ongoing with more chapters than One Piece are Hajime no Ippo, which is
Never heard
an absolute classic, and
Very good.
Grappler Baki. Apparently Baki counts as one series.
You talk about your whiplash in series. What so good, so stupid.
Okay, guys. So if we all had to choose a favorite character, favorite fight, and a favorite scene from this arc, what are you going to say? TJ, we'll start with you. Sorry.
Scene.
It's okay.
Favorite scene is definitely Luffy, Ivankov, the impelled down prisoners entering the battle. For sure. He's like, it's so good. Maybe I would say Whitebeard using his devil fruit for the first time, because that was absolutely insane. Nobody knew, like, as audience members, what that could do yet. So that was absolutely nuts to watch. Character wise, that's hard to say.
Just in
Probably-
this arc. No, it
yeah,
doesn't have
in
to
this
be, like,
arc.
of all time. Yeah,
Yeah, that's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
it is.
What's a good
Marco.
problem to have?
Yeah,
I'm
Christian.
gonna go
Ooh,
with Marco
excellent
the Phoenix.
choice.
Who?
Marco.
No. Marco.
Pineapple Head.
Yeah. All right, Christian. I knew you were biting at the bit.
Whitebeard, and Whitebeard are my answers to all 3. No. In seriousness, yes. To all 3. He's gotten some build up before, but now we actually see the man in action. And wow, Oda delivered, and then some here. Like, Shanks has a lot to live up to. Dragon has a lot to live up to as time goes on, because if this is the precedent, they need to be better than him. And how their future fights and introductions are handled later on in the series, because this man has class. This man has strength. This man has the love and faith of his crew. And then he proves it by going out in the line for them to save one person. I mean, talk about, going from the 99 to save the one.
So true.
And it did it. That's a man that I could see myself being under leadership with. Like, if you can inspire
Yes.
that much confidence in the people working under you, I want to be with. I want to learn under you. How do you get things done? How can I be better about leading myself? Whitebeard does that and more. His death, perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
Still standing, all the blows on the front, none on the back, because he's just that good.
His death reminds me of is it Boromir in Fellowship who gets shot twice? Am I thinking
Boromir?
right? Yeah, Boromir.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it makes me think of.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
kind of with the Helm Hammerhand in the newest movie kind of scenario.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna save the best for last, so Liz will go after me. My favorite character in this is also Whitebeard. I have to agree with Christian. I don't do it a lot, but here, yeah, he's right. I do have to ask a question though, because I might be wrong about my own choice. Did they show some of the backstory with Whitebeard in this arc, or is that somewhere else that we see that?
That's in this arc.
Yeah, I thought so.
Or
So
well,
just-
unless
just
what do you
kind of-
mean?
Well,
With him and
I
Ace.
remember seeing some of like what happened before, and you kind of realize that like again, in this world, pirate doesn't mean what you think it means all the time. And just kind of seeing that he is who he is because he cares, not because he's after the One Piece. Apparently he knows it exists. He's not after it.
Yeah.
He's not after power. He has power. He doesn't need any more power. Right? Like, he is after relationship. And like you said, like he left the 99 for the one. And I'm like, man, the amount of just gall, integrity, and just love that takes. And for love to be shown so masculine, like I don't like to talk about masculinity a lot, but like toxic masculinity is everywhere. Wimpy men are everywhere in TV because people don't understand that the difference of toxic masculinity isn't not being masculine. No, this is the most masculine character I think maybe ever. And it's because of his love. And I'm like, yeah, that's how you do it. That is how you do it. So yeah, favorite characters right there. Favorite scene. Actually, I'm going to go because, again, you know, the most impactful scene is no one's favorite because it's awful until Liz says that's her favorite. And then I'm just going to die. But no, my favorite scene is when Luffy knows Ace is about to be executed. And all of a sudden, all of his will just boom. And everyone just falls over. Like the way that was animated and everything. I was like, yeah, that was freaking cool. My favorite fight scene, I'm cheating. It's literally every single time Jinbei fights. I love his fighting style. I wish they brought him back in future arcs because he's so cool, but who knows if they do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be such a wasted opportunity if they didn't.
It really would. It would. All right, Liz, bring us home. Favorite character, favorite scene, favorite fight.
All right, favorite scene would be, because I enjoy all the memes because I have a dark sense of humor, is when he becomes a donut.
No.
Because I've sent this to other, I think I've sent this to Christian before, especially when the guy, like he's the marine is shaking hands through Aish with the guy who also made the donut with Demon Slaver, and it's like, great work, you too.
Yeah, that's a banger.
And I just love all the dark memes of the donut.
Absolutely
So
not.
that has to
I've seen like surprising.
it helps me keep with my
I'm
grief,
canceling
you know what I mean?
systematic ecology.
I don't care.
Cancel
I don't
culture
care.
coming
It's
back.
my favorite scene because it, like, this is how some people cope with grief,
God.
through humor.
Okay.
And so you can process
Let's
your
please
grief
move
however
on.
you want.
Favorite character.
So I think, if I remember correctly, I think Garp is at Marineford, right? Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going
he's
to
wearing the
choose
hat.
him
He's
as my
great in this,
favorite
too.
character because, like, just the emotional, like, damage he probably felt on the inside, but he couldn't show it. You know what I mean? Like, he literally sees, like, someone he loves dear, but, like, because he chose, I mean, unpopular opinion, did he choose the right side? Did he do the right thing? But the man made a choice and he stuck to it because he is thinking of the bigger picture and the long game. And so I have respect for Garp. So he's my favorite character. I can only imagine, as I mentioned earlier, like, you hurt when it's you, but when someone else hurts. So not only is he hurting, but now he has to see his grandson hurting and all, like, the impact that he has to carry and the decision that he made, or what not to do, so like that. Whoa. And then favorite fight scene, I will also say, like, when Luffy was fighting, and then I'm just such a dark person, and I don't understand because I'm pretty peppy. But, like, just like when Luffy thought he got away, and then the despair that happened on his face, that's also the favorite, like,
Yeah. I mean,
the favorite fight.
It was so well done. I get it.
It was, because
it
here's
just
the
hurts
thing.
too much to choose it for me.
And because
Well, to see
life
him that
doesn't
broke.
work out the way you want to. And so I think it was especially, like, because, like I said, I was 18, but these 12-year-olds watching,
Yeah.
you got to learn young, you know?
Apparently.
People die and they don't come back.
I am also going to shock everyone and agree with something that Liz said in all this. Garp is a second, like a close second for me with favorite character. Just the
solid.
Integrity. The integrity it takes to say, listen, I believe the right thing to do is to stand with the government, because that's what he genuinely believes is correct. But he also isn't about to kill his kid. And instead of being like Joe Biden and being like, I'm just going to pardon everyone last minute, Garp actually has integrity. And he says, I'm going to do what I think is right, but I might half-ass it because I know what the outcome I want to be. So I'm just going to barely do what I think is right.
I'm going to let Luffy hit me.
Yeah,
Just so
I'm
we can
gonna
get
let
the
it
hates.
happen.
I did my
Good
job.
stuff. Technically.
I just did
I love
it
that.
bad.
He like lawyered them. I was like, this is great. Like, technically, I did what I was told to do.
Yeah.
Man.
I tried. I did my best.
As far as
Kid's
you know.
just strong. Yeah.
God, yeah. Yeah. So
Except these guys, like, they definitely think of Garp more like we do currently. And they're probably so mad.
Oh, that's so funny. That's true. But all right. I know we already touched on some of the big themes and stuff, but I want to go back over them because they're so important. And again, I really hope this episode comes out during the season of Lent. Like I joked earlier, but I think it actually is meaningful that we have in the church, high liturgical anyway, a season dedicated to thinking about our own mortality and our own shortcomings. So I think that's important. But so two things. First, I'm going to start with the lighter one. A lot of this show and a lot of this arc revolves around willpower. Luffy is going to save Ace despite the entire world government. Why? Because he simply has that much will. And if you want something bad enough, you can just make it happen. And then, as Liz pointed out, good guys don't always win. So a lot of this arc does revolve around that theme of like, can willpower be enough? She's shaking her head violently. No, this isn't on YouTube. I have to tell you guys, Liz, give us your wisdom. Is willpower ever enough, even in a world where it actually has power, apparently?
No, absolutely not, because you cannot change the law. You cannot defy gravity. You are not God. So willpower, you are very limited. You are not limitless. You're very finite. So you pretty much suck, my love.
All right.
That's how I feel. But I mean, granted, your willpower and your attitude can affect how you handle the situation, though, of the outcome.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's important, but it's not going to change crap. It can change you, but you can't change the situation all the time.
I do think willpower goes a lot further than many of us postmodernist thoughts give it credit for, if that makes sense. I think a lot of times we're like, everything's just science-based facts. You do the right thing, don't do right thing. Everything is a cold choice. And actually, I think how much will, how much oomph, how much heart, how much passion we put into something actually does matter. But it can't be enough on its own, despite what Spider-Man comics sometimes tell us. Speaking of Spider-Man comics, Christian, what's your thoughts?
Well, I was just about to say, one of the best moments in the early, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee run is Spider-Man underneath a bunch of broken equipment that's about to be underwater. He's going to drown after just fighting Dr. Octopus. He's weak, he's broken, he's beaten, but he's got to get out of there. He's got to deliver a cure. Otherwise, Aunt May is going to die for the 75th time this year. And if he doesn't do that, he's lost his aunt, and he himself is going to die. And he's already tried lifting him up, but it's like, I can't do it until he thinks about all of his responsibility, about all the lives that he saved, about all the things that he could do in his life. And that's when it comes in and lifts him, gives him enough strength, to give him enough purpose to get out. And that's such a great scene there because it works in context there. But in regards to the question itself, Shonen rightfully has a stereotype in it where your main character, they can do anything if they've got the power of friendship and if they just believe in themselves. And
friendship
there
is
are plenty of things.
magic after all.
Yes, oh, indeed it is. There are plenty of manga and anime I could call out for doing that, but the general idea is, well, you need to have belief in yourself and what you're going to do. You need to have the ability to overcome odds, and that comes from, hey, something is wrong, I need to work against it, or something needs to get done, I can be the one to do it. That's a good lesson to teach kids. But what One Piece does well here is like, yeah, that can apply here, but if you don't have enough resources, if you don't arrive at the right time, if you don't fight well enough, you can fail. Willpower isn't enough. You need better intel. You need better plans. You need better people at your side to take care of things. Like if the crew were here, I think Ace would have been saved. But because of what happened, there was no way he could have recruited the crew because he has no clue where they are. But I'm just saying, like, if they were there, this would have been different. But because he didn't have all the resources available to him, he was having to make up plans on the fly. Mm-hmm. He had all these people working against him actively. Luffy can't finish the job, so his willpower isn't enough, and that's a fine lesson to teach. I'm
going to say here, I desperately want our Facebook group to vote the next What If episode to be what if the crew was at the Summit War. And I'll tell you my answer. The short version is just Zoro would have died instead. TJ.
I would have been more upset if Zoro died than Ace died. Unpopular opinion.
I would have too, but I could see it because I know I just feel like I understand Zoro's heart enough because I think of Zoro as TJ, and I'm like, no, that's what would happen. He would have sacrificed himself first because again, integrity. He wouldn't have died. Is such a big part of the show.
Yeah, no. Well, especially Mihawk is there, and he's not ready to face him again, and that's inevitably what probably would have caused it this time.
Yeah. Zoro wouldn't have died though, not from a Kainu.
He has too much will. He wouldn't have died. TJ, is willpower ever enough?
Yeah, sometimes.
All right. So my take is going to be a little bit longer, obviously, because that's what I'm known for, apparently. I think I really love that Spider-Man and even One Piece does a great job of showing us so many times where willpower does make such a huge difference. If you have the will to do something, if it's in your heart, a lot of the times you can manifest stuff. Like I agree with some of that, not necessarily on a spiritual level, but I think a lot of times why we aren't successful in what we do is because, especially Americans, we half-ass so much of what we do. Which is why Garp wasn't successful, man. If he would have tried harder, Ace would have gotten executed. But I think one of the things that's interesting to think about here, though, is I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Is it Alabasta? Is that the other arc I'm thinking of with Croc?
Alabasta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luffy did win because of willpower, but also a little bit of luck because it just happened that blood being on his fist allowed him to hit Croc. But like he didn't change anything that he did. He just kept using willpower. And we saw there that it was almost not enough, but he was lucky. Here, he wasn't lucky. I think that's a big difference. I also am going to put this a little bit on the God spin on it because I think a lot of Christians preach prosperity gospel kind of stuff of like, oh man, if you're just in God, all things are possible. So whatever you want, if you believe in God, it's going to happen. That's not what that verse is talking about. First of all, shut up. Second of all, that's not true. And I also don't agree with the other side. Like we have friends that are more process open relational theology. You know, Tom Ord's a good friend of me and TJ's. And the way that he explains it is like, oh, God just can't do it. So even if you're working with him, the reason it didn't happen is because God can't do it. I don't know if I agree with that. I think we're just thinking incorrectly about the kind of power of God and the kind of what God is. I think we just assume God is so much like us that it's like decisions and everything work exactly the same, except for he can do whatever he wants. And I'm just like, yeah, that's just probably a wrong way of thinking about God. But I do think it's more complicated because it is hard to explain, right? Like if I pray and like I love God, why would God's plan involve someone being raped? Obviously, that makes no sense. He's powerful enough, he can stop it. I'm willing to stop it. I have the willpower. God has the power. Why is it not being stopped? I don't think there's easy answers for a lot of stuff. And I don't think One Piece ever gives us easy answers in the stories that it tells either. And I like that because I think sometimes we just have to accept that there's not easy answers and to just be. God is love. God is present. And sometimes I don't need to know all the other details. Again, you know, I go to Lao Tzu when he says like, not to respect the clever, not to overthink things. And I think part of what he teaches that I think is really relevant, even especially to us Christians as in the Western world, is you fill yourself up so much with knowledge and so much of like, here's the rules of how God works or how God doesn't work, that like everything becomes confusing. It doesn't make sense. And now you're like, well, God must not be real because he doesn't fit this box that I made him. And I'm like, no, be in relationship with others. Be in relationship with God. What do you need to know? God is present right now. Sometimes the other stuff might not make sense. Okay. Sometimes just accept that it doesn't make sense. Like it's good to study God. Theology is important. I have a whole podcast about theology. I care a lot about it, but I also realize that sometimes you just need to accept God is there. This story wasn't real. If it were, Ace died. There's no way that Ace should have died. There's no way the world government should have come out on top of this. It makes no sense. But guess what? God was present. Okay. Just accept it. I think that's an important thing in all of our deaths. You know, this story, what it's asking us to contemplate is death. And in the season of Lent, sometimes it's hard to think about your own mortality or those who have gone before us. You know, Liz mentioned her sister. I think I've mentioned my grandparents. We mentioned Steve Irwin, Tim Keller, all these people who died, who made an impact in our lives. And I think trying to make sense of it sometimes belittles the death instead of just saying it happened. But I want to open to you guys, death in general, or just in the story. How do you think about death, and how does one person's life and death, you know, Ace wasn't the biggest character in the world, but how does one person's life and death make an impact? And how do we think about it here in the season of Lent and in our lives? TJ.
Well, I think from the writing side of things. Oh, all night.
Nope. Christian, go.
Go ahead, DJ.
Go.
I already spoke. Okay.
You were prepared.
Yeah, I'll take it from the writing side of things. Like when you're writing a story, especially on the more supernatural Fido kind of side of things, people need to die for stakes to be there. There needs to be the threat of death at the very least. You need to believe that it's possible for the characters not to make it out alive. Otherwise, you've got a boring story where, my super awesome main character who has no flaws whatsoever and has all the superpowers and is the best it's just better than that. Well,
true.
I have a character who has the ability to mimic other powers and stuff like that and can do stuff like that, but I have to make things believable. I have to give him weaknesses. I have to give ways that he can be used people can work against him well, to utilize lesser parts of his aspects to make things work. But also at the same time, you've got to have side characters and supporting characters who have important roles to play in the story, who you would care if they die. Like if you're just writing a story and someone just kind of like, I think overall Avatar did it pretty well, but it's like, did Jet just die? Well, they didn't really handle that well. It could have been done better, especially with the character that showed up multiple times before. And you don't want that to be your audience's reaction. You want them to go, I feel a loss now that this character is no longer here. Or I feel good that bad guy finally got what he deserved and he got sliced in half, or he fell off a cliff and his head was bashed in. And like after all the evil he did, it is good he is gone from this world. And I think the Oda does that spectacularly here, especially after we joked about no one really dying in One Piece until now. You could die in a backstory and a flashback, but you didn't die in a story. There were multiple times when people should have died but didn't. But this is when he subverts that in a good way. My expectation is everyone's going to make it. Ace is going to make it out alive, but Ace doesn't, and it isn't done in a cruel way. It's not done in a, well, we don't care about our legacy characters kind of way, and we'll just kill them off as whenever we want to. No, this matters in a story for everyone involved, and I really appreciate how he handles it.
Liz, same question. How does this arc help us think about the importance of the life and death of a single character or individual?
I mean, as I said before, without the death of Ace, you wouldn't have had the growth of Luffy. You wouldn't have had even like you it's been speculated like with Zoro and the teammates not being there, now they feel even more remorse and they felt like they failed their captain, so now they have a sense of zeal and duty even more towards their captain to have his back since they feel like they failed. So you wouldn't have had the same story if Ace would have survived. And then even thinking through future arcs and other people show up, we wouldn't have had the same reaction and appreciation of other characters showing up from his childhood if Ace was still there. It would have been like a happy family reunion versus oh my gosh, what a beautiful 360 that we just witnessed. So I don't want to give any spoilers to that. Granted, like I said earlier, before, like I just have, when it comes to fiction, such a strong line of like, once the TV's off, I don't feel it anymore. So I never once questioned mortality or anything like that when a character dies, or, did I do enough? I definitely, just with my personal life, I think about if the way I react, am I going to have regrets if so-and-so dies? And that's kind of like how I live my personal life, just because I have a lot of toxic family members. And so and I show Jesus to them, because I'm like, at this point, I say it as a joke, but it's just my reality of like, I just don't know who's going to die next, because I've just had a lot of people die. I've already planned Taylor's funeral multiple times, because in my head that makes sense for me to lose Taylor in this lifetime. But I just always think through the lens of, if someone else dies, how is that going to, it sounds selfish, but affect me? Because at the end of the day, when someone dies, they're dead. Like, whether you believe in a heaven after, or if they go into, like purgatory, or if they go into Abraham's bosom, whatever you believe, like the reality is they are no longer a part of your daily life. And so you have to make the choice of how are you going to live with grief, and how are you going to live with people while they're here with you right now. So I guess that's kind of how like I deal with death, if that makes sense, because it's literally scripture, let the dead bury the dead. You know what I mean? Like as soon as David's son actually died, he stopped mourning. He's like, all right, let's get to work. His willpower didn't change God's mind, or like, if you want to get down that rabbit trail. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just kind of how I view death.
Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly just trying to give us all space to think. And
it is different because it's fictional, but I think, and this wasn't until pretty recently, but one of the most significant effects from Ace's death specifically, they used that to show you never know how far someone can reach. Like, and I don't want to spoil anything, but pretty recently we find out that one of our, newer main characters is, had a significant relationship with Ace, and we didn't know that. No one knew. but they mourned at the exact same
I'm
time
just so
Luffy
curious.
did.
I'm gonna have to binge this later now.
Yeah, they mourned at the same time everyone else did because they had Ace's Vivre card. So yeah, but yeah, you had like, I've definitely had that happen before. You know, you go to a funeral and it's like, wow, who are all of these people? Like, I had no clue.
Yeah, when my mom's dad passed away, I think it was the first really close to me person that I had to go to their funeral. And it was so weird because I didn't feel my own hurt for months. You know, everybody deals with grief differently. We joked about that earlier, but it's accurate. But I felt the pain of my brother. My brother, it wasn't just his grandpa. That was his best friend. They would go fishing every year in the summers. You know, like my brother was always going up there to be with him. And I wrestled with a lot of thoughts. And when I think about death, I always think about like that first experience I really had. Because like, I love my grandfather. But I remember there was a lot of times I didn't really like him. And I feel terrible about that because he was a very touchy person. I don't like being touched at all. So like I would go to their apartment and sit as far away from him in the living room as possible. And I loved him. I wanted to play basketball later with him. Like I wanted to hang out. It's not like I didn't like him all the time. It was like I just didn't like that. And now I look back and I'm like, man, I wish that he would grab my knee one more time as much as I hated it. Right. Like I miss that, even though I hated it. And even more, there's so much of my brother that is just gone and it's buried with him. Right. And that's where like C.S. Lewis quote, that's why it sits in my brain is like, I've seen that. So much of my brother only was there when Papa was there and now he's not there. And I sometimes don't even recognize my brother. I love him, but I'm like, it's just not the same person. And I think you can say that of Luffy in the story. Like you're looking at it like, he's just not the same person after this. And that's how you know it's good writing, right? Like you're like, oh, that's reality. And it's rough. Yeah. And I don't know. There's so much of this when thinking about death, it's just difficult because I don't think it makes sense to us really. Like I think we try to make it make sense. I don't think it ever really sets in. When C.S. Lewis writes, he writes about grief observed. He writes about when his wife passed away. And if you ever want something to just make you feel like absolute garbage, read that. Because he goes through the experiences and the feelings and he writes literally everything down. And it's so interesting if you read it side by side with his problem of pain, where like he has the nice theological answer to why God lets bad things happen. And then you see what happens when he actually goes through bad things, right? And it's a whole different experience. It's a whole different thing. And one of the things that he writes about that really, it kills me because I think about it all the time and I wish I just had never read it. So I apologize for everyone listening to this. He writes about how like, he's not even sure if he wants heaven to exist. Cause he's like, if I go to heaven and I meet my wife, it's the same thing of like when you haven't seen a friend for a long time and you're like, oh, it's like you forgot what they looked like. You forgot what they sounded like. Cause like you fill in your memories with like made up, your imagination just kind of fills in your memories. So then the longer someone's been gone, the more it's like actually this version you made up of them rather than who they actually were. And like, you know, for us, we have pictures, so we have a little bit of help with that. But like some part of that is just true. Where like you're making stuff up to fill in your memories. And eventually we know what happens to the human brain when you get older. You forget things. And if you just keep filling things in, and if heaven's real, you get there and you're like, who is this person? And are they going to show up a completely different age, like the age they were, and you age another 20 years? And it's like, oh, now it's kind of weird that we were married once. And like, I'm going through all this and I'm like, I hate it because I feel everything that he's writing. And I think that's what a good book, that's what a good story, it's what a good show, good movie is. It should make you feel these things. If it's going to deal with death, deal with it well. And I think it's important that we think about these things, not just because, hey, death is a reality, but I think it's just healthy because death is part of the human experience. So if you believe in God like we do, that is part of what it means to be human. I don't think death is necessarily just a curse. I think it's something that we are meant to have, but we can get into the weeds on that. I just think it's important that we do think about it. And we think about the ultimate death was actually, you know, Jesus's death. We're getting near Easter. And I don't think it was any less of a death just because he raised again. I think it actually makes us have to contemplate more that he actually died. And what does it mean to live again? Is that a physical reality we're all going to have one day? Is it a spiritual reality we all get to have thanks to him?
Death is natural and it doesn't have to be, you know, the end all to depression. So counseling is great. Just to let everyone know, mental health is important. There are books you can read. There's podcasts you can read. Grief is best not handled alone. So if you are grieving, make sure you find a positive community. That's all.
That's true.
Well done. Well said.
Yeah. Also, shout out Beppo. I love Beppo, the bear on the Heart Pirates.
Oh, yes.
Underrated
Honestly,
character.
I kind of have a crush on Law, but that shocks no one.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Perfect. Well, do you guys have any recommendations you'd give to the audience?
If you enjoy thinking about death, I'm going to do it that way. And you want a story that doesn't actually make you go through the death. One of my favorite graphic novels is Twig by Scotty Young. It's fun colors. It's all the good fun stuff, but it deals with the main character. His father just passed away and him trying to figure out who he is now without his role model and dad in his life. And it's a really good read if you just want to think about the aftermath of death and not death itself, because sometimes it's easier to think about what happens next. Yeah.
Okay.
A really fun thing I've been watching on Netflix, speaking of death, and if we don't want a death anymore, is Sakimoto Days, who is an ex-assassin, and he is fantastic because he fell in love, and Sakimoto, number one family rule is we do not kill. But everyone's trying to kill him because he left the organization without permission. And so now everyone's out to get him, but number one rule, you cannot kill and you cannot keep secrets. And he's fat and he's cute now, and it's fun. So go watch that.
Sakamoto Days is really good.
It's so good.
So really, I think Christian and I had talked about it. Maybe for an episode? I don't know. I recommend Invincible. If you haven't started, there's no reason not to, unless you don't like gore. And then you should just get over it and watch it anyway.
True. I want someone to use the VidAngel Christian app and then tell me how short Invincible is with that on. That's all. Thank you. It edits out all gore and language. It's got to be like a 3-minute series.
Interesting. Well, hadn't intended this because I selected this way before the episode started. But speaking of death, but actually undeath, I'm recommending the older 30s mummy and 40s mummy films. I just recently watched through them all. I'd only ever seen the original. And now I'm currently going into the Hammer films that were made in the 50s and 60s. So plenty of good stuff there. Not the best films all in all, but still pretty good.
Guys, if you're on the laptop, please consider rating and reviewing our show on Podchaser or GoodPod. That's going to help our show gain recognition and make it easier to find in search engines like Google. People use Google out here. If you're on your phone, though, consider rating, reviewing, or commenting on our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's going to help prioritize our show in those algorithms, and it's free and quick, so we appreciate that. You guys are wonderful and beautiful. We also want to thank our sponsors on Apple Podcasts, Captivate, and Patreon. Today we're shouting out Annette Noel. You are amazing, Annette. And remember, if you want your own shout on the show, you too can support our show for $3 a month on one of those 3 platforms, Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. And with that, we're going to go do a bonus question, so you guys should check it out. And remember, we're all the chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
Here at Systematic Ecology, we believe in a few things. We believe that there is freedom in Christ to like what you like. We believe that Christian nationalism is a heresy. And probably most important that I'm going to talk about today, at least, is that we believe the best place to spend your extra cash is on the Systematic Ecology merch store. That's right. This is a shameless shill for our own products. We go through Creator Spring, and we have a few great products on there. Me personally, I'm a big like black shirt kind of guy, muted colors. But there's nothing better to like throw a little something extra on there with like a black baseball cap, the dad hat with the Systematic Ecology logo on it. That's a classic. I just really think if you got a couple, $30 extra, that's for us.
Hello there, listener. Thanks for listening. This is Evan Garcia. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We just wanted to come in and remind you that this episode is part of a bigger network of podcasts called the Anazal Podcast Network. We have great shows like the Whole Church Podcast, Kung Fu Pizza Party, and the Homily with Pastor Chill Will. Chill Will. The podcast has sermons from our host, Pastor Will. Great sermons every time. The Kung Fu Pizza Party is Brandon Knight showing his expertise and his passion for everything Kung Fu films. And he dispenses a bunch of wisdom. Great show. And the Whole Church podcast, where Josh and TJ interview people from different denominations and church traditions to pursue greater church unity. It's a great podcast to see what other denominations are included. And we just want to say thank you so much for listening. See you next time.